We just don't mesh well, so let's get a divorce. You raised the kid on your own. It had been a long time since I was happy with Tom's words, so I responded with an unexpected smile. Got it. Here, the divorce papers. Seeing the divorce papers, Tom's eyes widened. I think Tom was shocked that I had the papers ready, but it's proof that I was thinking the same thing. Getting him to bring up the divorce was convenient for me. I won't miss this opportunity. If he regrets it after the divorce, that's on him. Given the circumstances, I won't forgive him no matter what he says. I hope he falls to the very bottom. Otherwise, all my hardships won't be rewarded. I smiled gently at Tom. My name is Emily Duff. At 28, I'm doing my best as a full-time housewife. I got married 3 years ago. My husband, Tom, runs an IT-related company, and he seems to be quite prominent in that field. However, I'm not familiar with the IT industry, so I don't really know the details. But my elder sister, Catherine, is a system engineer and is well versed in the IT world. So I asked her about Tom. Tom, he's quite a figure of attention in the industry. I see. So he really is something. I felt proud even though it wasn't about me. Tom's work is busy, and there are times during peak seasons when he doesn't come home for days. But that's because he's working hard for me. So I do my best with household chores for Tom's sake. I believe that helping each other out benefits both of us. However, lately, I've been questioning if we're truly supporting each other. When I see Tom's attitude towards me, I especially feel that way. I met Tom 4 years ago. At that time, I was working at an electronics retail store. I've always loved movies, and I insisted on watching them in high quality even at home. Which brand's device is the best? How much should I spend on a device? As I continued wanting to use the best products, I became obsessed with electronics. And that's how I ended up working at the electronics retail store. On the other hand, Tom was a customer at the store where I worked. Tom, when he came to the store, asked me this: "Where can I find the cheapest SSD? I'll guide you to the section." That was our first encounter. As I continued talking to Tom during his visits as a customer, we began to meet privately as well. It eventually turned into a relationship, and before long, we decided to get married. However, looking back now, I feel like our perspectives were off from the very beginning of our marriage. We already have a vacuum cleaner. Why did you buy a robot vacuum cleaner? Well, it cleans even the tightest corners, and it gives me time to do other things. Huh? You're a full-time housewife. Don't think about cutting corners in housework, Tom said loudly. I had no intention of cutting corners. I just wanted to use my time efficiently. Vacuuming a not-so-dirty floor feels like a waste of time to me. It's better to leave it to the robot vacuum and use that time for laundry or tidying up. In the end, Tom didn't understand my way of thinking. Do you see me as just a housemaid? I had a hunch he might think that way, but that might have been Tom's true feelings. Slowly, doubts about Tom began to grow inside me. Lately, instead of helping each other, it feels like I'm just being used. There might be a gap in our ideal image of a couple supporting each other. That's how I began to feel. Then, one day, I got a call from my childhood friend, Karen. I hadn't met her properly since we graduated from high school. So I decided to meet Karen after such a long time. And then Karen started talking about something. Can you teach me how to clean the air conditioner? According to Karen, the air conditioner at her home had started acting up. It didn't seem like a malfunction, so she wanted to start with cleaning it. Leave it to me. I'm knowledgeable about appliances. Using my expertise from my time working at the electronics store, I decided to teach Karen how to clean her air conditioner. We ended up cleaning her air conditioner together and got caught up in a conversation. By the time I realized, it was already dark outside. Oh no, I need to go home. Oh, sorry for keeping you so late. No worries, see you later. I hurriedly headed home. When I reached my apartment building, I bumped into Tom. Where were you? Tom gave me a suspicious look. I was at a friend's place. It's fine to meet friends, but you've been doing your chores, right? Of course I have. Annoyed, I quickly boarded the elevator. Tom followed immediately. Maybe a bit tipsy, he approached with unsteady steps. Instinctively, I reached out to support him. You're drunk at this hour? I had a dinner with work associates, and it just turned into drinking. Even so, I stopped mid-sentence. What's the matter? Nothing, never mind. I smiled and shook my head side to side. Yet Tom seemed to sense something off about my demeanor. If you have something to say, just be clear about it. Yeah, it's just... I smelled some perfume on you. Gathering my courage, I answered him like that. When I had helped Tom earlier, I noticed the scent of perfume from him. And it was a scent I recognized. A woman's perfume, used by someone close to me. As I hesitated whether to bring it up, Tom smirked and started patting my head before speaking. Are you worried I'm cheating on you? It's not like that. I didn't want to admit I was jealous, but Tom seemed to see right through it. Your sister was with me. As I thought, I glanced at Tom and he replied with a light chuckle. It's not like I'm cheating or anything. We just happened to work together. Really? Yeah, since we were working together, I took the opportunity to discuss something about you with her. His unexpected words made my heart skip a bit. Unlike me, Tom continued with a calm expression. We've been so busy that we didn't even have a wedding ceremony. I wanted to do something for you. Something like what? I'm grateful to you, you know. How about we go on a trip sometime soon? Tom suggested as if he just thought of it. Yes, I'd love to go on a trip. Then it settled. Tom began noting it down on his smartphone. So he was really considering my feelings. But was it truly just work? If it was just work, there would be no need for her scent to linger on him for that long. My sister had known about Tom right from the start. She mentioned he was the talk of the industry, but maybe she was just the one keeping an eye on him. Even when Tom came over for our marriage talk, the two of them seemed overly familiar with each other. Above all, if he wanted to do something for me, he could have just asked me directly. Unspeakable words swirled inside my heart. Maybe it was really an affair after all. What if Tom was cheating on me with my sister? That thought was all that came to mind. I only have a high school diploma, and since I'm a stay-at-home wife, I don't have a job either. If he divorces me in this situation, could I really make ends meet? An indistinct fear began to creep in. That's right, I should be prepared for the worst-case scenario. This became a catalyst, solidifying a particular reserve within me. About half a year passed, and one morning I woke up and rushed to the bathroom. Tom's eyes widened in surprise at my sudden movement. "What's wrong? Did you eat something weird?" Maybe all cold." It was all I could manage to say. I couldn't easily get out of the bedroom. It's not like I'm particularly frail. However, getting sick once a year seemed normal for me. Maybe I've accumulated a lot of fatigue. I think I'll stay quiet today. With that thought, I tried to return to the bed. Just then, Tom, who was in the living room, raised his voice. "Where do you think you're going?" "Sorry, I'm not feeling well, so I'll rest today." "What? Then what about my meal? Isn't preparing meals your job?" Tom, clearly irritated, questioned me like an inquisition. I was too weak to argue now. Leaning against the wall, I replied, "Sorry, eat outside." Saying just that, I ignored Tom and returned to the bed. Oh no, I should go to the hospital later. With that thought, I quietly closed my eyes. A few hours passed, and I was finally able to get up. It was just past 1 p.m. Tom was nowhere to be found in the house. I took a taxi to the hospital. I still wasn't feeling well. When I get home, I'll lie down again. I thought about that constantly. Eventually, I arrived at the hospital and was examined. As a result, I found out I was pregnant. The moment I heard the news, I suddenly felt lighter. I joyfully headed home, wondering how Tom would react to the news. Grinning to myself, I waited for Tom's return. Eventually, Tom came home. I confronted him in the living room and told him about the pregnancy. However, Tom just said, "Oh, so that's why you weren't feeling well." Was he not happy about it? I was completely taken aback. But from that day on, something changed. Tom became colder than ever before. He ignored me when I spoke to him. He blatantly came home late, and whenever our eyes met, he only had complaints for me. "This isn't about the baby. I'm certain he's having an affair." I was convinced of it. If that's the case, I need to prepare for the eventuality of divorce. I quickly took action. Months flew by in the blink of an eye, and I was now 7 months pregnant. My belly's grown quite a bit, and it's becoming a challenge to even put on socks these days. Gently rubbing my significantly enlarged stomach, I slowly took a seat on the living room couch. Tom approached me. "Can we talk? There's something I want to discuss." "Talk? Make it quick, I'm busy," I replied indifferently. My affection for Tom had all but vanished. Tom had also become more distant, no longer expressing words of care or concern for me. "I've been thinking about this for a while. We're just not compatible." "Huh? We're not?" "Our personalities just don't mesh. We should get a divorce. Raise the kid on your own." Tom said bluntly. However, it was the content of his words that excited me more than the way he said it. I wanted to get divorced too. It had been a long time since I was genuinely happy about something Tom had said. So I found myself responding with a smile. "Understood. Here's the divorce paper." I pulled the divorce paper from my pocket and handed it to Tom. My name was already filled in. Tom's eyes widened at the sight of the document. I think he was surprised that I had the divorce paper ready. But it proved that I felt the same way. It's very convenient for me that Tom brought up the divorce. I'm definitely not missing out on this opportunity. I can always regret it after we are divorced. From this point on, I will never forgive him no matter what he says. I hope he falls hard and reaches rock bottom. Otherwise, my struggles would be in vain. I gave Tom a slight smile. Suddenly, his expression turned gloomy. Why do you have a divorce paper ready? Huh? Well, I wondered if I should tell him the truth. As I hesitated, Tom raised his voice. You've been cheating on me, haven't you? Huh? Cheating? I wanted to retort, saying that it was him doing so. However, cutting me off, Tom raised his voice further. You plan to divorce me and be with the one you cheated on me with. That's not true. Enough. I was thinking of parting amicably, but now I'll demand for you to give me all your property. How audacious can he be? I'm disappointed to think I married a man like this. As I sighed deliberately, Tom's voice became even louder. Who is he? I'll demand for that guy to give me his assets too. I said that's not the case. How can I believe you? He snorted and turned away, behaving just like a child. Despite my astonishment, I tried to calmly reason with Tom. How about we both undergo a private investigation? That way, you'll see that I'm innocent, right? Hold on. What do you mean by both? Well, you're suspecting me, right? I also don't trust you. I exaggeratedly shook my head. Then, with a threatening tone, I continued. You brought up divorce because you're cheating. That's what I think. That's not true. Tom denied it. But there was sweat forming on his forehead. How transparent, I thought, but pretended not to notice and continued. Let's investigate each other then. We'll determine who should give the property based on that. But wait, is there a problem? I knew that Tom was cheating. Moreover, in the past few months, I had obtained evidence of his infidelity from a specialist. That's why I said so confidently. Let's get this settled then. I smirked and made Tom an offer. But doing all that would be troublesome, right? So since you brought up the divorce, you should give me your assets. Why should I? Because you brought it up first. You must have wanted the divorce more, right? I questioned, and Tom looked away, avoiding my gaze. One more push, I thought, and added a bit more. If you agree to give me some of your assets, I'll divorce without asking any questions. It's easier that way. That's, let's say, $15,000. I won't ask anything, and we can part cleanly. As I said this, Tom quietly nodded in agreement. Arguing further with me would only put him at a disadvantage. It seemed Tom had realized that. After that, Tom and I formally divorced. As promised, Tom shared some of his assets. I used it as funds to move to a new place. By the way, I had Karen help me with the move. It would have been impossible to do it alone. Anyway, living alone after such a long time was more comfortable than I thought. Plus, I'm expecting a baby soon. It's a bit of a setback, but life is going to be much better from now on. I murmured while gently rubbing my belly. Not long after the divorce was finalized, my older sister came to visit. Why is she here? Was the only thought that came to mind. Because the person Tom had cheated with was my own sister. This fact was confirmed when I hired a detective. I already have the evidence, and Tom should have known about it from our exchanges right before the divorce. I thought my sister must have known too. Why did this happen? I was baffled. While I was lost in thought, my sister began to speak. So I heard you broke up with Tom. So what? This has nothing to do with you. I tried to say it was none of her business, but then closed my mouth. She isn't unrelated. In fact, she is right in the middle of all this. It's not all her fault, but at least half of it is. Realizing this, I started to get angry. I had always thought of getting back at Tom, but upon reflection, should I also get back at my sister? As I pondered this, my sister spoke up in annoyance. Why are you ignoring me? I'm not ignoring you. It's because of this attitude that your man was taken away. My sister smirked. I see what this is about. She came to here to belittle me. Realizing her intention, I quickly retorted. That's not it. I was thinking I didn't want a man like that anyway. Really? Sounds like a sore loser to me. Not at all. If you're satisfied with my leftovers, then by all means, enjoy. My words made my sister frown. I thought to myself that it seemed to have hit a nerve. Unable to hold back, my sister brought up the main topic. Actually, I came here today to announce my marriage. Marriage? With whom? I asked, feigning ignorance. With that, my sister replied with a triumphant grin. It's Tom, sorry. Oh, really? Good for you. I replied in a flat tone. At that moment, my sister raised her voice. What's with that tone? Show some regret. Like I said earlier, I don't feel regretful. What? He was your husband, wasn't he? You must be upset. That's just her assumption. I've known for a long time that Tom was having an affair. And of course, I knew it was with my sister. It's true, I only confirmed it a few months ago after doing some research. But that's all there is to it. I don't necessarily feel regretful or resentful towards them. I only intend to reciprocate what was done to me. With that thought, I took a deep breath and said to my sister, Are you satisfied with my hand-me-downs? You! My sister bit her lip in frustration. Her expression was unexpectedly comical. If that's all you came for, you should leave. I'm not free. Huh? What's an unemployed loser like you saying? Don't think you can live off alimony forever. A smirk crossed my sister's face, as if she'd found a way to strike back. But she was far from the truth, because I've been working for months now. In fact, I started right after I found out I was pregnant. But it wouldn't be fun to spill that here. So feigning ignorance, I replied to my sister, You might want to worry more about yourself. What? Everyone knows about Tom and my marriage. If he remarries with my sister, I said coldly. Suddenly, my sister began to tremble. She apparently hadn't thought this through. Breaking up with a sister and remarrying her sibling would surely invite gossip. Even if no one says anything to their face, there would be whispers behind their back. I continued almost threateningly. Tom's company is doing well for now, but what if this story spreads? How would that look? That's hoping to live off Tom's earning forever. You might want to rethink that sweet thought. After I said that, my sister retorted with, Knowing, and left as if she was running away. I genuinely believed she wouldn't remarry after this. That's what I thought. But contrary to my expectations, the two got remarried. It happened about a month after Tom and I got divorced. making the worst choices as usual. I was so stunned I couldn't speak. But now I had an excuse to cut ties with Tom and my sister. It all worked out in the end, didn't it? I mumbled, rubbing my belly. A few days later, I received a call during work. I answered, recognizing the voice immediately. Emily, where are you right now? Tell me. Tom? What's the matter all of a sudden? Just tell me where you are. Tom sounded so panicked, it was impossible to have a normal conversation. I titled my head, wondering, and told him the truth. I'm at home, but why? You're home? I'm coming over now. Wait. Why are you coming? When I asked him, Tom responded with a puzzled tone. Because I have urgent business. Huh? Urgent business? Isn't that your own matter? It'd be inconvenient for me if you come, you know. Having an ex-husband visit isn't necessarily a bad look. However, Tom has already remarried to my sister. Although we are now in-laws in the eyes of society, the situation could raise suspicions about our relationship. When I explained this, Tom sighed deeply. You're right, sorry, I was just panicking. So what's up? Right, I heard you started working. I wondered where he heard that from. It wasn't from my sister, and as I was thinking, Tom hastily questioned me further. How much do you earn? Do you have money? Thinking it would be a good opportunity, I shared my current situation as a form of retaliation. Right now, I work at a house cleaning company. However, I'm in a position of co-management. In fact, when I cleaned Karen's air conditioner, I had considered turning this into a job. After that, when I discovered Tom's infidelity, I discussed it with Karen. Karen recommended that we incorporate immediately, seeing the growing demand in the industry. But I lacked the confidence to do it alone. That's why I invited Karen to join. She immediately agreed, and now we run the company together. The business is going well, and with our executive salaries, our annual income is about $200,000. So that's the story. But it's none of Tom's business, right? Well, yes, but hold on. His response was oddly hesitant. Sensing something was amiss, I quickly operated the computer on my desk. I soon found a particular online article. I see, your company is in trouble. Huh? Why would you say that? It's on the online news. It says, your company is on the brink of bankruptcy. I read out the online article. It seems Tom's company's reputation has suddenly plummeted. Moreover, it seems their clients have already started to drift away. They couldn't expect any loans from banks, and it seemed the company was on the brink of bankruptcy. As soon as I conveyed this, Tom began to shout, "Stop it! That's not true!" What's not true? It's written right there. I'm telling you, the real story is different. Here's what Tom had to say. On the night when my sister visited our place, Tom heard about me from her. What? People think I dumped my sister-in-law to jump to my wife? Is that what they think? Emily mentioned that. If people really think that, what will you do? Then, can't we just frame Emily as the bad guy to make things right? Saying this, Tom immediately began spreading false rumors about me to his friends and acquaintances. Rumors like I was cheating with multiple men or that I stole my sister's fiancé. All of these were, of course, outright lies. He must have thought that bad-mouthing me would divert attention from their wrongdoings. But things didn't go as simply as he thought. People started to question why anyone would marry someone like that. In the end, their lies were quickly exposed, and that's how they lost their credibility. You brought this up on yourself. I didn't mean for this to happen. Hey, if you are earning that much, could you lend me some? Huh? Of course not. She rejected him outright. Then Tom tried to gain sympathy by tearing up. But if the company goes bankrupt, our employees will be left with nothing. That's not my problem. It's all your fault, Tom. If you're going to blame someone, blame yourself for cheating. Saying that, she hung up the phone. He destroyed himself even before I could get my revenge. I muttered to myself and then blocked his calls. In the end, Tom's company went bankrupt. He faced backlash from his employees and even got sued for damages by a few of them. Now, to cover his legal expenses, he's working at a cleaning company where he was able to get a job immediately. So, from being my husband, Tom became my brother-in-law and eventually a business competitor. It feels annoying how he keeps popping into my life. By the way, I safely gave birth to a baby girl. I'm currently handling administrative work for my company while taking care of her. You can take maternity leave if you want. I'll think about it. I told Karen that, but I have no intention of taking a break. That's because I enjoy working right now. And my newborn daughter gives me strength. It's essential for people to help each other. My daughter in my arms strongly reminds me of that. That's why I plan to keep going strong.
My name is Emily, and I'm a 28-year-old single woman. I don't work for any company and live at home with my mother and my older sister, Catherine, who is 2 years older than me. Because of this, my family often refers to me as an unemployed trash in my late 20s. At 28, I'm confined to my room. Hey, unemployed trash, pay this month's rent. The person banging on the door and raising her voice is my sister. After graduating from high school, Catherine got a job at a local company. However, she quit. She claimed it was due to terrible juniors, but according to the rumors, it seems she was the one bullying the juniors, and that became a problem. Now, she sometimes takes up short-term part-time jobs. In other words, she's a part-timer. Catherine often says, "Even though I only work part-time, at least I'm working. You're the unemployed trash who isn't. That means you're the lowest in this house." And that's how she refers to me, as an unemployed trash. By the way, I'm not very good at interacting with people. The reason dates back to my school days. When I was in elementary and middle school, I was often compared to my sister, who's only 2 years older than me. Catherine was the flashy, sociable type, and even her classmates would joke around asking me things like, "Are you really Catherine's younger sister?" It wasn't just because I was more reserved compared to Catherine that these things happened. Catherine loved to tease me by labeling me as a failure, and she would spread rumors about me to her classmates. She was talking to bugs in our garden, or she locks herself in her room and reads strange books all the time, probably the kind that nerds read. She spread stories about me, both true and false. I believe I wouldn't have been so introverted if it weren't for Catherine. Because of Catherine's rumors and influence, I was gradually labeled as a nerd or geek, and eventually I began to fit those labels. I started avoiding kids at school. I didn't join any clubs. I never hung out with friends, and as soon as classes ended, I'd rush straight home. The time before Catherine came home was the only time I felt at peace because I knew I'd be teased again when she returned. I had hobbies, so I'd immerse myself in them to escape reality. My mother would scold me for that behavior. "If you continue like this, you won't be able to make it in society." That was my mother's favorite phrase. And her next line would always be, "You should take Catherine as an example." I couldn't possibly emulate Catherine, who cornered me nearly every day. By the way, my mother was a stay-at-home mom and had never worked in society. My mother divorced my father when I was still very young. When my father was around, my mother, Catherine, and I had a better relationship than we do now. However, after the divorce, both of them began directing their negative emotions towards me. It seemed the reason was that I resembled my father. My mother doted on Catherine, who resembled her. She would throw away things I bought with my saved allowance, while Catherine would get expensive birthday gifts, and I'd just receive candy. Both my mother and Catherine would say, "Everything we do is for Emily's sake. We're just trying to encourage her to be a brighter child." But to me, they were merely justifying their actions. In reality, it was not my mother but my father who earned the money for our living expenses and money to raise us children. Even though he no longer lived with us, he made sure to transfer enough money so that Catherine and I didn't struggle financially. I contacted my father secretly without letting my mother know. My father and I kept in touch occasionally. When it came time to choose a high school, he told me, "Go to the school you want, Emily. I'll pay for it." He seemed to have persuaded my mother later on. Thanks to him, I was able to attend the high school I wanted, but my mother became even stricter with me, seemingly displeased that I had gone through my father. She would complain loudly enough for me to hear, saying things like, "It's tough having an incompetent daughter," or "It's strange how Catherine is so responsible." Over time, I had mostly stopped talking to my mother about myself or my future. Based on past experiences of being dismissed, I believed it would be futile to share, and I decided it would be better to handle things on my own. My mother held a grudge because I had once tattled to my father, and her response was merely, "Once you turn 18, do whatever you want." Thus, as time passed with my mother and Catherine unaware of what I was doing, both my sister and I grew up. Despite everything, I wished for reconciliation with my mother and Catherine. Our bond weakened due to the divorce, but I held on to the hope that even a small gesture could mend things. Every year, I picked out gifts and celebrated Catherine's birthday. "What's this? Such poor taste." Sometimes Catherine would say things like that to me. I tried cooking meals in the kitchen. However, my mother told me, "This isn't edible. Don't do it again." No matter what I did, I couldn't improve my relationship with the two of them. This went on for many years, and I began eating out more often. "How can you afford such luxuries? Where are you getting the money?" Although my mother scolded me this way, I dodged her questions by saying, "I have a part-time job." After turning 22, I started paying rent. My father's financial support ended, Catherine quit her job, and both she and my mother had no income. Their harassment intensified, perhaps due to financial insecurity, and I began being charged $500 a month for rent and food expenses. Catherine, on the other hand, wasn't paying anything. While it's true she used a room in the house, we never ate together and lived separately under the same roof. Still, I decided to pay. I thought, my family is in trouble. I have to help. However, I was shocked to discover something. Apart from me, my mother was asking her own parents for a monthly allowance of $4,000. I was close with my grandparents, so they consulted with me about the allowance. I was shocked to discover that my mother was demanding such a large sum every month. My grandparents are elderly and not working anymore. There's no way they could afford to pay that amount monthly. I asked my grandparents to send the $4,000 I'd give them to my mother on my behalf. I then apologized for burdening them with my mother's demands. While my grandparents looked apologetic, they told me, "Don't worry about the money." There's a reason I chose not to give the money directly to my mother. I feared she would take advantage if she knew I had money. I hoped that with Catherine finding a new job and the financial concerns being alleviated, they'd return to how they once were. Holding on to that hope, I continued to pay a total of $4,500.
By the way, Mom and I are moving to a new apartment soon.
My mother was smirking on the side. Which new apartment? I hesitantly asked. What Catherine proudly presented was a brochure of a luxury high-rise apartment.
Here, it's amazing, isn't it?
The location, amenities, and view were indeed top-notch. It was amazing, but I couldn't comprehend who was going to pay for it or why they were moving there. After all, Catherine works part-time jobs. As I was staring at the brochure lost in thought, Catherine mentioned,
I might let you live there too.
Me too?
You're an unemployed trash who can't do anything without us, right? If you really insist, I'm saying I might let you live there.
What will happen to this house?
We'll start the selling process and put it on the market within a month.
Setting aside Catherine's annoying comments, I had been feeling that our current house was a bit cramped. It might still sell, but it's a bit old. Whether the condo Catherine showed was worth the price needed to be evaluated. But the idea of acquiring a high-value property now did cross my mind. I decided to consult with a friend knowledgeable about real estate investments about the condo. He's a friend from my student days. His comment, "I think it's a decent property," became the deciding factor for me. Later on, I informed my mother and Catherine. I'm thinking of moving into the condo. My mother and Catherine exchanged glances and smirked. They must have been thrilled, as from the beginning they had probably intended for me to pay the rent.
Then we need to start the paperwork immediately,
my mother said cheerfully.
You, the shut-in, can use this as practice to go out. Go handle it,
Catherine said to me. I had planned to go anyway, so I didn't retort. I immediately contacted the real estate agency, went to their office, and proceeded with the purchase, not the rent. When I returned home and informed them that I've completed the procedures, both my mother or Catherine cheered out loud. I hurriedly headed to my room to escape the noisy pair. A few days before the scheduled moving day, there was a note on the boxes containing my belongings reading, "No need to transport." Hey, what's this about? I asked my mother and Catherine. They had finished their preparations and were leisurely drinking tea.
It's your stuff, right? It's something off?
Catherine pretended not to understand on purpose. Oh, we're moving tomorrow, right?
What are you talking about? Only Mom and I are moving to the condo. Plus, we've decided to sell this house. You need to leave ASAP.
We're leaving you behind because you're bad luck. Realize you can't be unemployed forever. Stand on your own 2 feet. My mother also made some nasty remarks. I see. I simply responded and returned to my room. On the moving day, my mother and Catherine's belongings were being rapidly taken out. They were very excited and bragged to the movers.
We're moving to a condo. The night view is amazing.
Of course, they completely ignored me. I stayed in my room focusing on my own work. A few hours later, I was bombarded with calls from my mother and Catherine. Hello?
Hey, unemployed trash. What's going on? They told us the contract isn't set up. Emily, didn't you handle the paperwork? I thought you could at least manage that, you useless piece of junk.
The shouting was so loud I instinctively moved the phone away from my ear. Well, I did expect something like this. I did handle the paperwork.
What do you mean? They told us we aren't the current leaseholders.
Catherine's voice was high-pitched and piercing. I did handle it. I didn't rent, I bought it. But since only Mom and you were supposed to live there, I sold it.
Bought? Sold?
That's right. The day they told me I couldn't move with them, I sold the apartment. It was a bit of a hassle, but I didn't want to pay for a home that only they would live in. It sounded like the two were arguing over the phone. I said to them, "Why don't the two of you just renegotiate the contract?" my naive sister suggested.
Right, Mom. Let's just contract it again for us. We can make Emily pay us back later. Yes, let's do that.
It seemed Mother agreed. The phone abruptly hung up. A few hours later, the phone rang again with Catherine's shrill voice.
You schemed something, didn't you?
What are you talking about?
They said we can't sign a contract.
I figured as much. I asked them. You can't? Why?
I don't know. They said something technical. Something about not having enough credit or something.
Catherine isn't the sharpest tool in the shed. She probably doesn't understand the term credit. That means they don't trust you to sign a contract. I explained slowly as teaching to kids.
What? I don't get this credibility thing.
That means they don't trust you to sign a contract. It's about social credibility. You often claim to be a part-timer but barely work, making you pretty much an unemployed trash. They won't lease to someone like that.
Why could you, an unemployed trash, sign it and not me? Something's fishy. You must have rigged something.
This conversation was getting nowhere. I decided it was time to explain clearly why I was able to purchase the apartment. Listen, Catherine, and Mom, are you listening too? You remember I went to an art school? Despite Mom being against it because it was far away, I've always been drawing, and I won a national competition in high school. My achievements were recognized, and I got a scholarship to attend the famous art university. Neither of you knew, did you? I never told you guys. I'm still drawing, using Dad's room for it. The monthly rent of $4,000 might seem high, but I felt it was okay given the hassle of moving. Oh, I'll send you the link to my portfolio website. I sent the link of my creator profile to both Catherine's and Mom's phones. This site showcased my achievements and past works. There's also a contact form for potential buyers of my artwork. I'm not an unemployed trash. I've been investing my income as well. I think my annual income is on par with business owners. My income is leagues ahead of yours, Catherine, who claims to be a part-timer. That's why I have credibility.
What? You're lying. Stop making things up.
Catherine's voice was faint and incredulous.
Art university? Artworks?
I could faintly hear my mother's voice. I've never been particularly good at interacting with people. However, I've always had a keen interest in art and paintings. I started to find joy in drawing objects around the house, replicating plants and copying insects. The art book that my father secretly bought for me on my birthday is a treasured item. To my unsophisticated sister, Catherine, it probably looked like something a nerd would read. Being a successful artist, I, of course, don't work for a company. To my mother and Catherine, I probably appeared as an unemployed recluse, an unemployed trash. After all, they've never shown any interest in me before. They have no clue about the real me.
I don't know or care if you're some great person, but I won't forgive you for betraying Mom and me.
I was even impressed that they could pick a fight at this moment. You're selling the house within this month, right?
What?
Selling it. That's what you and Catherine decided, right? To kick me out. I could tell over the phone that both my mother and Catherine was speechless. I've already moved, as told, to one of the apartments I had invested in. I heard my mother and Catherine starting to panic on the other end, saying things like,
"This is bad. We have to cancel the sale."
After they removed their belongings, I had another moving company take out the rest. I'm already relaxing in my new place. Sipping my coffee, I remarked, "Looks like you two might end up homeless. Hope you can cancel the sale in time."
How much more will you mock your family to feel satisfied?
Hearing her say that for the first time, I shouted back in anger. That's my line. I don't expect them to understand how I've felt all these years being treated as the lowest in the family. I don't want to feel sorry for myself. There are so many things I couldn't do because of Catherine, many things I resented her for, but I believe the path I chose was right. Through art, I've made many friends and acquaintances. And then, I'm engaged. I'll be living in my new home with my fiancé, so there's no room for you two. Please enjoy living without the nuisances, I declared and hung up. Are you okay? The one cautiously asking from behind was my husband. He seemed surprised because I rarely raise my voice. Yeah, I'm fine. They're like parasites, so they'll figure things out even without me. I've given up on my sister in her 30s who's jobless and my mother in her 40s who's the same. They somehow managed to cancel the sale of the house and moved back in. I lost all reasons and the willingness to pay them rent or the $4,000, so I stopped all financial support. It seems my penniless mother turned to my grandparents again.
Emily did something terrible. She's the worst. It's all because of her that we don't have money.
That's what she seemed to have claimed. She probably thought things would work out if she just acted spoiled as always. However, my grandparents were furious when they heard the whole story from me. Shameless!
The one who's truly awful is you, isn't it? How could you treat Emily like that all these years? Mocking her, demanding her money, treating her like a nuisance. Unbelievable. You deserve to be abandoned.
My mother lost trust even from her own relatives. Catherine tried to get a job again, but it seems she's struggling. It had been years since she last worked. She occasionally called me.
Emily, I realize I was wrong too. Let's put that behind us. Can you introduce me to a job or maybe a man who can be my husband?
I was wrong too. What does she mean by I was wrong too? As expected, Catherine never changes. Asking for a job is one thing, but including a husband in the mix? She's clearly looking to leech off someone. Sorry, I don't think I know of any jobs or men that would be a match for you. Meaning she's too much to handle.
Oh, well, let me know if you find any.
Does Catherine think a prince will come to whisk her away? She's already 30, yet still so immature. In this respect, Catherine and my mother are so alike. The reason my mother divorced my father was because she solely depended on his income without doing anything herself. My father, having a job with frequent overseas assignments, found it challenging to raise children, so he had no choice but to entrust their custody to my mother. He told my mother to raise us properly since he was providing ample child support. As a result, while my mother doted on Catherine, it seemed she grew to resent me, who took after my father. And now, even I have turned my back on my mother. If Catherine ever gets married, I can already foresee a similar future for her. I'm glad. I couldn't help but let those words slip. About what? My husband asks. That I didn't turn out like Catherine. With a kind husband and a fulfilling life and job, I have things that neither my mother nor Catherine possess, especially considering I grew up being treated poorly by both of them. I am Carrie. I'm in my late 30s and work as an office lady while also helping out at my family's liquor store. Until 6 p.m. on weekdays, I work as an office lady, and after returning home, I assist with the accounting and management of the family liquor store. Back in the day, our liquor store was very prosperous, supplying alcohol to hotel banquet halls, local bars, restaurants, and various other places. In our neighborhood, there were no other liquor stores, so we were able to operate our business with no rivals or issues. However, in recent years, restrictions on serving times and other factors have dramatically reduced alcohol consumption. Not only banquets, but even some bars stopped serving alcohol at night. Naturally, this brought severe financial difficulties to our family business. Being the eldest daughter, and with my younger sister Amy already married, I was the one striving hard to turn the business around. Moreover, my parents' accounting was sloppy. We already had debts, and when the business began to decline, my parents continued their traditional methods, unknowingly letting the debt grow massively, leading us to the brink of bankruptcy. Nevertheless, due to my father's wish not to close down the liquor store, I, who had been living alone, decided to move back home 2 years ago. However, just running the liquor store wouldn't be enough to pay off our debts, so I chose to keep my current job while assisting with the family business. On weekdays, when I finished work and come home, my father would greet me at the shop's open shutter with his favorite drink in his hand.
Ah, you're finally back.
Dad, have you been drinking again?
These bottles won't sell just sitting here. I might as well drink them.
From his smell and slurred speech, it was obvious that he drank a lot. Dad, please stop drinking the stock. Raising his voice, he replied,
A daughter who can't even get married shouldn't be lecturing me.
He then went inside the house. I cleaned up the messy store and started working on the books. My dinner time, after wrapping up the day's work for the liquor store, is usually past 9 p.m. Even though I'm used to it, I'm still hungry. With both parents already asleep, I head to the kitchen, prepared some porridge, and then prepared breakfast for the next morning. For breakfast, my mother prefers toast, while my father prefers porridge, so I prepare both of their meals daily. And that's how my day ends. On weekends, when I finally get a day off, I'd love to sleep in until at least 10 a.m., but by 8 a.m., my mother forcefully wakes me up.
Hey, hurry up and warm up your father's soup.
What? Why can't you do it?
Why should I do the housework when you're here? Just get up already.
My mother seems to think I'm some kind of maid. Indeed, I've always been meticulous and loved cooking and cleaning, so I naturally took the lead in helping with household chores. But when I was in high school, my mother came to rely solely on me for everything from taking care of my younger sister to all the household tasks. Tired of this situation, I got a job right out of high school and got the job I have now. The job was very challenging for me in my teens, and I felt like giving up many times, but each time I was helped and supported by my seniors at work. After all, I was woken up in the morning without a good night's sleep, and after finishing my chores, I went straight to work at the liquor store. From the beginning, when the business began to lean, I have been shouldering my parents' debts, which amounted to $30,000 per year. Frankly, it is not an easy amount. I've made significant savings, so my cosmetics are from dollar stores. My lunch is always a homemade lunch. I also minimized the use of heating up meals, trying my best to save on utility bills. Then I started to work on revitalizing our family business. At first, I thought that merely distributing alcohol directly to the stores weren't enough. I asked my father if I could do something with the internet, but he said,
The way we've always done things is the best way. It's not my fault, it's the world's fault.
While I was busy thinking about the store, my mother would keep pushing household chores onto me with questions like,
Isn't lunch ready yet? Have you hung out the laundry?
With all this work on the house, there was no time to think about how to rebuild the business and take action, and we ended up being behind the curve. Eventually, after putting in a lot of time, I started an online business, primarily selling unique and hard-to-find liquors from our store. Given the various restrictions and the difficulty of moving around in the world, this treasure hunt style of online business proved successful, and our business began to prosper. Concurrently, the mention of our store's name online brought more customers to our physical store, and my free time became even more limited. It was tough to be so busy and not have any time for myself, but I persevered, sparing no moment, all to reduce my parents' debts. Finally, we reached a point where my parents could sustain themselves.
Amy has a baby in her belly.
That's wonderful. Isn't it your first grandchild? As I expressed my joy, my mother frowned and said, "That's why you should leave this house." What? As I stared at my mother for a few moments, not understanding what she was saying, my father, who was listening to my mother and I's conversation over drinks, said,
"We're going to live with Amy and her husband, so I'm telling you to pack up your stuff and leave."
"What? But I came back to this house for the both of you." Both of them wouldn't listen to my pleas. My sister has always been a free spirit, never helping around the house. Even though she went to a junior college wanting to become a childcare worker, she dropped out just a few months later saying, "I got tired of college." After that, she continued to live off the money sent by our parents. This continued even after she got married. Apparently, her husband didn't have a stable job either, so the two of them lived on the money from our parents and their part-time jobs. Yet, they lived quite lavishly, frequently going on trips. I was somewhat aware of this situation but chose to turn a blind eye. Even when I was suddenly told to leave the house, I was too busy every day to find a new place. I begged my parents to at least wait 2 months and started looking for a place, putting my liquor store work on hold. A few days into this, I got a call at my workplace from my father.
"Carrie, what the hell are you doing? The store's too busy. Come back right now."
"I'm at work now. Ask Amy and her family to help." Annoyed by my father, who said I should leave the house but then selfishly tried to push his work onto me, I said that and hung up the phone. A few minutes later, "Carrie, it's your father on the phone again." "Again? I'm really sorry for the inconvenience." As I picked up the phone, my father repeated the same things and eventually started yelling at me.
"Carrie, you can leave early today if you need to."
Though I still had work to do, I didn't want to cause any more inconvenience to my coworkers due to my father's calls, so I decided to leave early that day. When I arrived at my family's liquor store, I found my father drinking alcohol, even though the store was still open. Really? Drinking instead of working? I was infuriated seeing him like that. When I confronted him about his drinking, he explained,
"Tasting the alcohol is essential to know the product. Just do your work and keep quiet."
Realizing there was no point in arguing with a drunk, I silently started my work at the store. From then on, I juggled my job, the store, household chores, and house hunting, resulting in an insanely busy schedule. One day, because of this intense routine, I felt dizzy at work, and before I knew it, I found myself in a hospital bed. I passed out and hit my head on the corner of the desk. Touching my head, I felt the bandages wrapped around it.
"It gave us quite a scare. How are you feeling now? Better?"
Tears formed in my eyes due to the kindness of my coworker. Over the past few years, I hardly received any kindness from anyone. No one appreciated me for all the work I did at the store and back at home. My alcoholic father and self-centered mother had pushed me to the edge mentally. My coworker saw me like this and said, "You've been working so hard, but soon you won't have to do anything at home, right? Let's take it easy from now on." I thanked my coworker for being there for me. I thought I'll be leaving my family home soon. Just a little bit more to endure. This gave me a renewed sense of determination. Eventually, I found a house and began preparations to move out. However, my parents nagged that since my sister and her husband would be moving in, I should clean everywhere around the house. "Why don't you handle it yourselves? I'm not going to be involved anymore." To my response, which they didn't expect, my parents looked a bit surprised.
"What's with that attitude? We'll be relieved to be rid of someone like you."
Despite working so hard all this time for my parents, I was dumbfounded at their lack of gratitude for everything I had done. Once I finished moving out, my sister and her husband promptly moved into my parents' home. Finally, I was free from my toxic parents. On weekdays, I went to work and returned home before 8 p.m. On weekends, I could sleep in, go for walks, shop, and truly enjoy my free time like never before. A month later, an unexpected phone call gave me a reason to laugh.
What about this month's loan payment?
Suddenly, I received an angry phone call from my mother. Huh? Loan? Isn't that the one you two created? After all the effort I put into reviving their liquor store and doing household chores, who was it that kicked me out for their convenience? I spoke so fast without giving my mother a chance to respond, but then I heard my sister's voice from the background.
Sis, please help. I had no idea about the debt. I thought the liquor store was thriving, and if I returned, I'd lead a comfortable life.
That is what they were saying to me. There's no way life is that easy. I could only laugh at my selfish family, my parents, and even my sister and her husband. There are 4 of you adults. You should be able to manage money. I could hear my mother and sister arguing over the phone. They were blaming each other, shouting terrible things at each other. They were so into it that they seemed to forget that they were on the phone with me. Listening to their conversation, I felt very disappointed, even though they were my own family. At the same time, my desire to no longer be involved with them grew even greater. My father, who would rather drink than work, my mother, who didn't want to do household chores, my sister, who hated working and wanted to continue depending on our parents, and her husband, who also didn't want to work. With these 4 people gathered together, there's no way that just the earnings from liquor store could cover the monthly debt repayment nearing few $1,000s, plus the living expenses of 4 adults. Frustrated with how irresponsible they were, I told them, I'm not involved anymore. Oh, by the way, I'm getting married soon and planning to move abroad in a few months, so don't rely on me. After telling them this, my mother went on about how I must have lots of money and that I shouldn't go abroad, but instead return home. Annoyed, I hung up the phone. After that, I did not answer any of my family's calls, although they kept on calling me many times. The next day, I changed my cell phone number and asked my coworkers not to transfer the call to me if anyone from my family contacted me at work. And I was able to distance myself from my family with the help of those around me. A few months later, before I left the US, I heard from a relative that the liquor store's online business I had built was also in trouble, with shipping delays and delivery of the wrong products, because everyone wasn't doing their jobs properly as expected. The store received so many phone calls with inquiries and became even busier. Then word of the sloppy management spread as rumor, and the company's reputation fell, resulting in a drop in revenues. Simultaneously, rumors spread about my father's daily drunken activities in the actual shop, and the store was labeled as a place filled with drunks, which slowed the flow of customers. The family liquor store, which had recovered enough to make a living, was forced out of business in the end. Then the 4 people who had lost their jobs could not even find any jobs, and they lost the means to earn money, and they had to leave the shop and the house they had used as collateral because they could not repay their debts. The 4 people who had nowhere else to go tried to contact me, but thanks to all my relatives who took my side and kept my whereabouts a secret, I was able to avoid any contact from my family. Despite my sister being pregnant, all 4 of them remained unemployed. The 4 of them argued every day about how to make a living, and since none of them took the initiative to go to work, they ended up dumping their responsibilities on each other and had a huge fallout. I ended up marrying my coworker and transferred to an overseas branch. My husband was that one coworker who stayed by my side at the hospital when I collapsed. We had been close for a while, but we grew much closer after that incident. Around that time, our company had proposed for both of us to transfer to an overseas branch, and with various coincidences aligning, our relationship bloomed and started to date. And eventually, we've decided to get married. Having spent so much time trying to rebuild my family business, I haven't had much time for myself. But from now on, I want to cherish our time as a couple, working hard in both our jobs and our household chores. For years, I gave everything for my family, but they took it for granted and never tried to help or contribute, always relying on others. Well, it's karma to those who only think of their own benefit and don't put in any effort at all. I am grateful to those who saved me. Using my family as a lesson to be never like them, I want to live a joyful life, considering not just my own needs, but also the needs of others.